Hi friends, I'm Giles and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypno-coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my professional work, and I kind of hope you do, or sign up for my free e-newsletter, Powerlines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Today I want to return to a theme that I've touched on before because it is one of the major themes of my work and philosophy, the dangers and disadvantages of living with clutter. To summarize my past observations, and you can find a fuller discussion of these points in the related videos on my YouTube channel, about why clutter is a bad idea. First, clutter is an energy thief. Every time you walk past or look at something that is cluttered in your environment, a desk, a table, your kitchen counters, anything, that pile of clutter reaches out and steals some of your life energy. This happens because every time you look at all of that stuff, it activates part of your brain that reminds you you're not really in control. That takes energy, that brings you down. Second, clutter is a focus thief. If you are constantly looking at a pile of stuff, you can't devote yourself to what is really important simply because before you can get to the important stuff, there's likely a whole pile of other things that have accumulated that have to be done first. For example, you may want to cook a fantastic meal, but you haven't put the groceries away. The sink is full of dishes, and you're not even sure where you put the spices. Well, all of that has to be taken care of before you can cook that meal, which is why in a professional kitchen, there's something called the mise en place, the everything in its place. A skilled cook or chef could actually cook a meal essentially blindfolded because you know where everything is and everything goes back where it belongs. Not so in a lot of other environments that I've seen. And this gets me to why I decided to do this podcast, because there has been some new research on the subject of clutter, its dangers, and its problems. Dr. Joseph Ferrari, a professor of psychology at Chicago's DePaul University, is probably the expert on the scientific study of clutter and its problems. He formed a research team that questioned three groups of adults about clutter and their overall level of life satisfaction. The first group was a gaggle of college students. The second were young adults in their 20s and 30s, and the final group were people over 50 years of age. He used a questionnaire to determine their tendency to procrastinate and quickly found a relationship between a cluttered environment and procrastination. The presence of clutter was the major factor in why people procrastinated about accomplishing essential things in their lives. After all, clearing away clutter is unpleasant and time-consuming, so people tend not to do it. This leads to frustration, as the more clutter, the less focus people had on accomplishing what they wanted for themselves because there was all this other stuff in the way. And this gets worse the older one becomes. The index of frustration and low life satisfaction increased with age if, and note that if, the person had a cluttered environment. If the environment was not cluttered, then people tended to report higher levels of life satisfaction as they got older. But if they had clutter, the opposite was the case. So, if you find your level of happiness with your life is declining the older you get, take a look around. If you see piles of clutter, that's what's causing your lower level of satisfaction. It's not that you lack skills or worth or that you're a bad person. It's because you've allowed clutter in your life to sabotage you. Clutter is awful. A study from 2010 reported in the New York Times showed that the presence of clutter caused a physical response in the subjects. Levels of the stress hormone cortisol increased in direct relationship to the amount of clutter a person had in their life. Interestingly, and I'm not sure what to make of this, when they looked at dual career couples, they found that the women who had clutter in their lives had high cortisol levels, and those high cortisol levels stayed high all day long. Men, on the other hand, had high cortisol levels if their home was cluttered in the morning, but those levels tend to drop during the day. The researchers hypothesized that the reason for this is that women in our society are socialized to still hold themselves responsible for maintaining the family home in a way that men do not feel responsible for. I don't agree with that, but that's the hypothesis. And therefore, the thinking is that the stress of clutter hits women worse. I don't think that's fair, but it's what the science shows. Now, as I've spoken and taught over the years about the value of living a clutter-free life, I've passed on my tips for doing this. Arrange your home for ease of putting things away. Have simple but enforced rules, like nothing on any flat surface that isn't there for a specific reason. When you use something, don't put it down, put it away, and be sure everything in your home belongs somewhere, and then put it where it belongs. I've also talked about the ideas of other people who are decluttering gurus like Marie Kondo, with her rule of keeping things only if holding them sparks joy, as she puts it. Well, Dr. Ferrari from DePaul University offers another idea which I think is worth at least considering. He believes that clutter often results from an over-attachment to items, and this makes it hard to part with them. So he recommends that if you're really trying to declutter a disaster area environment, recruit a helper when going through your stuff to determine what should be tossed. Don't touch the stuff yourself, because he believes that would awaken feelings of over-attachment. So have someone else hold stuff up and ask you if you really need it. Not touching it yourself makes it easier to decide to get rid of it, trash it, sell it, give it away. I've not tried this technique myself, but it's a new one and probably worth trying if you've got a problem. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject. You're invited. It does help me if you let others know about my work and my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And of course, if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or my Patreon channel. Have a great week.